Hey guys, we are at the R.L. Winston headquarters in Twin Bridges, Montana. If you've ever wanted to see how really cool fly rods are made, come along.
That's a big round, bro.
Hey guys, it's Adam with Winston Rods here, and we're talking a little bit about our museum. You know, I'm the sales and marketing manager for Winston, and I've been with the company for about 12 years now. So I've been lucky enough to learn a lot of the history in my 12 years here. With Annette McLean, she's really taught me a lot of stuff about the history. But everything starts out in 1929 in San Francisco with really Robert Winther and Lou Stoner. And that's where we get our namesake, it's from those two gentlemen. So if you take the R from Robert and the L from Lou, you get RL, and then the Win from Winther and the Stun from Stoner, you get RL Winston. So a lot of people think that there's a Mr. Winston, and that's not the case. It's the name of two men who started the company. Originally, the company was the Western Fishing Manufacturing Company, and then obviously the two gentlemen changed it up. Well, we started in 1929, and that was the year of the Great Depression, which is kind of a tough year to start a fishing rod company. One of the reasons we were able to do it was Lou Stoner was able to invent really unique wrapping machines. This is a bamboo glue wrapping machine that he was actually to invent and machine. So he was also a machinist. So he was able to really produce a lot of the tools required to build fly rods and spinning rods and any kind of rods at that time. We just weren't a fly rod company at that time. We did everything from spin casters, and we have a lagoon spinner up here. We have blue water rods. They did a little bit of everything in the early days. Winther would soon sell his stock to Red Loscott. And really, Robert Winther and Red Loscott were money guys. Red was a good angler as well, but really Robert Winther was only with the company for several years. The key figure here is Lou Stoner. He really had that vision to produce very fine fly rods and rods in general, and just, make a living doing that. Well, one day, the gentleman, Doug Merrick, walked into the shop in San Francisco. And Doug walked in looking to buy a rod. Doug was a great fly caster and ended up leaving with the job. And shortly after, he would buy Loscott's shares, and Doug and Lou would own the company together for quite some time. Unexpectedly, in 1957, Lou Stoner passed away, and that left Doug Merrick as the sole owner of Winston in 1957. Now, Merrick was really a visionary. He was the guy who kind of looked at rod design and materials, and he's really the guy that brought in the fiberglass material in the late 50s for us to start looking at new materials. Back in those times, fiberglass was the lightweight option to bamboo and really the faster option to bamboo. It recovered faster than bamboo did. So it was a really unique option in that regard. But Doug was really a visionary, and how do we make a better fly rod? How do we make a better rod? And Doug had that idea, and as far as progressing the company forward. So Doug owned the company until 1973, when a young fishing guide out of Ennis, Montana, Tom Morgan, heard that the company was for sale. Tom was a crazy angler, and he immediately purchased the company, moved to San Francisco for several years, learned the trades, learned the business, and began making steps into graphite production as well. So Tom is really the guy who progressed the company into carbon fiber materials. Tom was in San Francisco for 3 years, and then around 1976 brought on Glenn Brackett, who is a master cane builder, brought him in as a partner, and together the two guys decided to move the company back to Twin Bridges, Montana. A lot of people say, why Twin Bridges? Why Montana? Why did they leave San Francisco? And really, it's quite simple. From our doorstep here in Twin Bridges, we're 5 minutes away from 4 world-class trout fisheries. So back in those days, when Tom and Glenn moved the company to Twin Bridges, it was more of a mom and pop feel. Here's a key, come in, do your work, and then if you want to go and hop on the big hole at 9 a.m. and catch the salmon fly hatch, then you can do that, right? So it was really kind of an awakening as far as actually putting the rods into very amazing angling situations for trout. And, you know, that's really where we get a lot of our basis in the trout world from, is from the move to Twin Bridges, because we are all around so much world-class fishing. Glenn really headed up the bamboo, and Tom really focused on fiberglass and graphite. Back in those days, Tom had Fisher Manufacturing, and then later on G. Loomis roller blanks for us. Moving forward into 1991, the current owner, David Ndachi, purchased the company from Tom. He kept Tom and Glenn on as advisors. Glenn stayed on in the bamboo division. But David really, you know, he's the current owner, and he really has that vision for how do we make things better, you know, the same way Doug Merrick did, the same way Tom Morgan did, the same way Lou Stoner did. How do we make things better? And David said, you know, it really doesn't make much sense to be sending a competitor our proprietary tapers and designs and having them roll our blanks. You know, that doesn't make much sense. So David started in 1994 the process of building our own rod manufacturing facility. In 95, this current facility that we're in now was complete, and we were able to roll our own blanks and do everything from start to finish, and we have complete control over that process. So that was a really critical step in creating that and opening for Winston to take complete control over the entire rod manufacturing facility. David's owned it since, you know, Sam Druckman up above here, he's the guy that pioneered the really famous LT 5-piece design. And also, he's also pioneered boron technology as well. He figured out a way how to use boron in just a part of the rod, not the entire rod. You know, before in the 80s, there were companies that used boron through the entire rod, and they were so rigid and stiff. But Sam thought, hey, how about we just put it in the butt section? That gives us a lot of feel up top and a lot of reserve power when we're fighting fish or the wind kicks up and you need more stability throughout the cast. So Sam was one of our head rod designers for a long time, and then later on, Annette McLean came on. Annette has been with the company since the early 80s, and she started out buffing reel seats. She rose from buffing reel seats all the way up into VP of Operations and Design, and she's one of the most well-respected women in fly fishing history. I've been lucky enough to come up under Annette, understand what she knows and her philosophies. Annette retired, she designed the popular rods of the B3X, the B3LS, the Boron 3 Plus, the Alpha Plus, the Pure, the Salt Air. She has a lot of designs to her credit that really, again, continue to progress the company forward. So Winston is really well known for its history and, you know, its humble beginnings and traditions. But one common theme that we always want people to know is we're always trying to progress the sport. How do we make a better experience for an angler? And that's been a constant theme for us from 1929 until right now, 2022. So we're very proud of our history. You know, we have accomplishments like the use of hollow fluting bamboo, all the way up to incorporating boron and really unique space age carbon fiber materials. We've been in this business for 93 years, and we're excited to be in it for 93 more. Thanks, guys.
Okay, so we have Jeff here. What do you do for Winston, Jeff?
I'm the president of Winston Rods and Bauer Fly Reels and rod designer here, and we're going to give you guys an inside tour on how we make the famous green sticks. Come on back. All right, guys, first stop on our tour is our blank rolling room. This is where the whole process starts. Okay, it's a little noisy in here because we got a lot of equipment working, but we'll just go through a high level of what Winston does here every day. So you can see we have an assortment of mandrels here. The mandrel is the mold for a fly rod. Dictates the action of the rod, how it bends, how powerful it is. We've got a whole big selection of mandrels. In that step, we take a flag, which is a flat piece of carbon fiber pre-preg. and we apply it on that mandrel over there. The mandrels get prepped, ready to receive the carbon fiber. Now we're tacking that carbon fiber on that mandrel. From that station, they go over to this rolling table. This rolling table is going to drop down and compress that material around that mandrel and roll that part into a nice tubular shape right there.
Do the mandrels make good hot dog roasting sticks?
Super good. Yep. It's better, like a 3-weight mandrel is better than a 12-weight.
I was going to say, yeah.
That's more bratwurst territory. So we can see here's another part being rolled. We can watch that machine in action right here. All right, so that's when we transform from a flat piece of graphite to a round tube. After that, the parts come over here. They get a quick inspection. They get labeled so we know which part is which from now on out. Okay, so the next step here after we've rolled that graphite on the mandrel is we're going to do a layer of cellophane tape. This helps compress that graphite onto that mandrel and holds everything into place when it goes into the oven to get cured. Okay, this is really one of the first steps in our process here. So that flag, that shape of graphite that we roll around the mandrel needs to be cut out of a big sheet of graphite, right? So that is done on our CNC pattern cutter here. So all of our patterns are loaded into the computer, and we're gonna run this thing and show you how quickly this thing moves and cut patterns out for us. So that's a vacuum system that sucks it down and holds it into place. So it's like an air hockey table with holes in it.
But in reverse.
Okay, so here's the end result after coming off the pattern cutter. We have a flag. This is the part that will be rolled around the mandrel. So every fly rod we make has 4 parts except for the TMF, but every rod has an individual flag for every section. So that's the result, soon to become a rolled piece of graphite. Okay, so after the parts come off of our tape wrapper, they're gonna go over and get hung on our rack and go into our oven. The oven has a specific cure cycle that cures the resin that's in our pre-preg, and that's what forms a hard part. Okay, so now we have the part, the tape is removed. We have some ridges left on this part. We're gonna go ahead and run this through a centerless wet sander to smooth the entire part down. Okay, so here we have the before and after of the sander. Here's the before with the ridges left behind by the tape. Here is the after. A nice smooth part, ready for that beautiful Winston green finish. Now we're over at the ferruling benches. This one is when it really starts to become a fly rod. So we have a tip section, a mid 2, a mid 3, and a butt. Now Now we're going to make the cuts for all of the ferrule attachments here, and we have a precise length that we want those parts to overlap at the ferrule. Bernice is here making all of those cuts, making nice level beveled edges on here, and from this point forward, all 4 pieces of this rod are going to stay together for the rest of its life. Okay, next step after the ferruling bench, all of these rods are now 4-piece rods. The next step is we put on the cork grip, and we put on the winding check right there, and we glue on the tip tops, and they're ready to be marked for guide spacing. Next step, we bundle them together and we get sent out to our home wrappers within the community. We have home wrappers in a 60-mile radius around Twin Bridges that come in once a week, drop off rods and pick up their next bundle and go home and wrap all the guides on there. So these are getting ready to be picked up and sent out here tomorrow. Okay, so this rod's just returned from a home wrapper. You can see we have the green thread on there, wrapping the guides on. Next step, we're going to go put an epoxy coat on those wraps to secure them, and that's done back here in the coating room. The coating room is one of our really highly skilled positions in here. We're putting multiple wraps of a thin epoxy coating over these thread wraps to secure them, get a nice, smooth, even finish. So you can see that's done by hand with a paintbrush. This rod is turning, so we get a nice, even layer on there. Ayumi is going up the length of the rod. When this individual rod is done, it goes up on the rack here and turns for 24 hours while that epoxy dries. All right, next up in the Winston production process, I think is the coolest part that we do. It's the calligraphy. So every rod gets a hand inscription, model, line weight, length, and serial number.
Okay, so we've seen a lot of the processes. What would you say from the time the rod enters production until it is gone through shipping?
We're looking at least 3 weeks.
Okay, so significant amount of
It
effort and flow.
A lot of hands touching these rods at every step.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing that we've seen is just the amount of personal care each rod gets along the way, all the steps that are involved. People don't see that a lot, which is kind of cool, actually.
Yeah, something we're pretty proud of.
Yeah.
Rods, I would just make a machine and you just put materials in it, it spits out rods.
Yeah, that
Like extrusion.
Yeah.
that sounds way better, actually.
I'll let you know when I figure it out.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate it. Okay, here we are at the last step of the fly rod journey. We're gonna do the reel seat. We're gonna line everything up. We're gonna go final QC inspection and put this thing in a bag and a tube, ship it out to Fly Fish Food or your local fly shop.
Okay, so now you've seen how the sausage is made, with the exception that these are green, smooth casting, dry fly sausages, but more like sticks. Anyway, I don't think I've seen a video at least that shows this much detail how the fly rods are made. And how long have you guys been doing this?
Since 1929, so we've been perfecting everything you've seen back there for 93 years.
Man, that is an investment of time and people and
Curtis got his driver's license in 1929.
30. Yeah,
That's a long
we're at the
time.
Model T. Yeah. Jeff, we appreciate it. If you want to see some Winston rods, we have them on our website, link in the description below. You can check out Winston's website too. Share this with your friends. Like and subscribe.